This is episode number 166 of the Guns Magazine podcast. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Magazine podcast, one of the shooting world's biggest gun talk programs. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent. Thanks for joining us as we talk to the interesting folks who make up the world of shooting, hunting, preparedness, concealed carry, and the firearms industry. However, before we get started, we're happy to welcome a new sponsor to the Guns Magazine podcast, 4 Patriots Survival Food Kits. Last year, experts wrote that a food shortage could be coming, even in the U.S., but you don't have to worry about it if you create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriots Survival Food Kits. Hand-packed in the USA, the kits are compact and stack easily, and they offer a wide assortment of delicious breakfast, lunch, and dinners. Right now, in an exclusive offer to Guns Magazine podcast listeners, go to 4patriots.com and use the code GUNMAG to get 10% off your first purchase. That's the number 4, the word patriots.com, and use the code GUNMAG. Today is a bit of a departure. We're talking about single-shot rifles with Roy Huntington, but actually, we're talking about the lifetime journey of a shooter. In this episode, Roy and I kind of wax poetic about the deeper meanings of shooting sports and some of the ways you can find yourself growing and enjoying it more. Now, pull up a chair to the campfire, pour yourself a bracer, and follow along as I talk to Roy Huntington about Zen and the art of single-shot rifles. Well, good afternoon, Roy.
Good afternoon, sir.
Well, thanks for joining us on what may be maybe kind of a strange episode or maybe a really cool episode. I guess we'll know here in probably about a half an hour, right? So today we're going to talk about the art and zen of firearms ownership. And that's some pretty heavy stuff for a guy like me that, I struggle to use 2-syllable words. And I got to say, this was totally your idea. You were obviously in a philosophical mood and waxing poetic on all kinds of topics regarding firearms and the meaning of owning firearms. So let me start out by saying, so what was your inspiration? Did you have an epiphany moment or something?
No, it really, and first of all, before we get started, is don't shortchange yourself, because I always enjoy reading your columns of the magazine, and they always either make me laugh out loud or make me think like, and I think that that's important. And I think it's important that we all keep thinking all the time. And so for me, I got my first gun, a BB gun, when I was 5 years old. I'm 68 years old now. And I've never been unarmed ever since, And as the years progressed, I slowly morphed my life into being more sort of gun-centric. In other words, I learned gunsmithing, and I bought more guns, and I learned how to shoot them, and I went hunting, and I learned to write about them, and I eventually made that a second career, as editor of American Handgunner and all that. So there's a reason for that, and I've always wondered why. What is it about a gun that intrigues us so much? And I don't really have that answer. But what I do know is that as the time has gone by, my affiliation with guns has changed. And what I mean that, we were talking briefly before we started to record, is that with many people, buying a gun at the store, buying a box of ammunition, going to the range, shooting 50 shots into the target, seeing the holes appear, the brass empty, putting their gun back in the Ziploc baggie or zip case and going home. That's the extent of shooting. That's what shooting is to them, And now, granted, there may be some subliminal thing about, it's home defense and it's, or target, a little bit of target shooting stuff. But most people seem to be content to leave it sit right there. And there's a lot of people who are collectors, and you get a guy who knows everything about Savage 1907 pistols, but he's pretty vertical. That's it. Yeah. He'll tell you every model, every name, every spec, every historical thing about it, but that's also where it stops. And so what really got me interested in this was when I sort of discovered single shot rifles about 15 years ago. And as I got to learn single shot rifles, and I realized that it was having a pretty good effect on me. And what it was doing was that it was making me slow down. And it was making me appreciate the action of what I was doing. It was making me appreciate the wonder of this loaded cartridge. It was making me appreciate the engineering excellence of this fine old rifle that I was shooting, and the history and the people who made it. When you slow down and you begin to shoot single shot rifles, it allows you the time in your brain to start to think about these things.
Mm-hmm.
If you're banging away with your AR-15, all you're worried about is loading magazines and ejecting brass, and you're just like, really, you're not talking to anybody because you're too busy shooting your gun.
Yeah.
But when you have a single shot rifle, it's a social event, even if you're by yourself.
Yeah.
It allows you to be more social with yourself. Well, Brent, you and I have shot single shot rifles off my back patio.
Yep.
And I won't put words in your mouth. The last time you were here, we did that. What did you think?
I was actually thinking about that when you were starting to go down the single shot road, that you're exactly correct in that you have to slow down. And I thought maybe it was just me. My mind goes the same places. How did they come up with this? What inspired the guy that designed this to do this, and why not a repeater, and why in this caliber, and why in this configuration, and how have other people, it spirals into all these questions that you begin to really, you question it all. You want to know why, you want to know the backstory, you want to know the future story, and you want to understand everything about it. Like you said, being very vertical, knowing a lot about one thing. I want to know everything I can about this rifle, but I want to know also who else has used them? What have they used them for? And then that leads me into, well, what other, single shot rifles would I enjoy? And where did they come from? And it just, I often wondered if that's the sign of maybe a sick mind, that I can't just hold it in my hand and go bang and, okay, that's cool, let's put it away. Sometimes you do, but a lot of times you don't. And it's just inquiring mind. You want to know more about it. You want to know the intangibles too.
Well, I think a single shot rifle encourages you to slow down and think. One of the rifles you and I were shooting was a rifle that I built, that little 32 H&R Magnum one.
Yeah.
And I remember I showed it to you. I was really proud, and you shot it and you went, damn, works. Look at that. Bing, it was hitting the thing and all that. And we probably spent, I don't know, half an hour or so, 45 minutes on the back porch. I don't think we shot 15 or 20 rounds, But what we did do was talk about the gun, talk about the cartridge. We talked about how the extractor worked. We talked to each other, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, can you hit that? Why don't you, here's another bullet, right?
Yeah.
See if you could hit that. And had we been shooting an AR-15, I'm not capping on AR-15,
right,
but had we been shooting something like that, we both would have had our ears on. We would have been shooting really loud, obnoxious guns and really not learning much.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if I aim my AR-15 at that 100-yard gong, it's going to go ding.
Yeah.
But I think the appreciation of the retro classic stuff that the single shot rifle brings you. And yes, I had a Sharps rifle, and it's visions of buffalo hunting and all that kind
of course.
Stuff. But it's more than that, because, we went buffalo hunting with it, and Susie shot a buffalo with a black powder cartridge in my Sharps rifle. And we dressed up in period clothing, and I hate you both.
It
was a remarkable experience,
No doubt.
Well, that's a buffalo head in the room where you guys did.
Right.
Yeah. But it was a remarkable experience, because unlike going to a weekend competition or going prairie dog hunting or something like that, this was so just infused with historical significance. And the gun played a critical role in it. But it was the totality of everything, the seeing the other people with their guns and listening to us talk about these old cartridges, and we were comparing. Is that a 50 sharps? Is it? Let me see one, right? But we don't sit around here and say, "Is that a 223? Can I see that new normal round you have there?" We don't care, right? Because we got a case of them over here.
Yeah. Well, you're pulling me into this. I'm thinking, because this is the kind of stuff when I'm writing a story. I've often talked to a lot of aspiring writers and people that do writing, and do you really like what you do? And well, the answer, of course, is yes. But it's a job, it's work, and there are times when you're facing a blank computer screen, you got a deadline breathing down your neck. You just got to do it. And that part of me is, having written for newspapers for a lot of different years in different capacities, that was where it instilled my work ethic of, okay, I got to crank out 600 words right now. But when there's those moments where, especially if you're writing a story instead of just more of a factual piece, where you can actually take your time and sit back and think where you want to weave that story, that's, as my brother calls it, getting your muse on. The muse of the written word is upon you, and you can be, and the word I use is contemplative. And that's what I enjoy about hunting and why I like fishing so much, because there's moments of action. And, I love a good hunt where you're chasing down game and, your heart's pounding and all that stuff. But I also like those moments when you're sitting on the deer stand, or you're just taking a break, or you're out wading in the creek and you sit down on a rock and you smoke your pipe. It's those moments you contemplate it all. And you think about the gun, you think about the place of the gun. I always think about my ancestors and the hunting they did. And I've got several guns from my grandfathers, great grandfathers, and I periodically take those out and have those moments of, they actually carried these. And did they sit on a stump when they were squirrel hunting and think about the things that they thought about? And what did they think about? And did they ever think of somebody like me, several generations? It's just all this stuff. And to me, what it all comes back to is it makes the experience so much more real and significant and important. And if you don't have those thoughts, either I feel like you're not experiencing the whole thing, the real thing, or you've just gotten started and you're still worried about pressing the trigger the right way or manipulating the safety. But I really think to be a rounded person, and this could go to anything, woodworking, working on cars, whatever. When you get to a point where you're very competent, you really need to start thinking about more than just the competency and all the things that go into it that have built it to this point, what it's going to be in the future. And if you can start doing that, that's when you really start having those moments that I think, not to get too metaphysical here, but it's what makes life worth living. It's
richer,
exactly.
And I think you said it very well, because yes, you're a new shooter, you have to learn how to the gun run, how do you reload for it, how do you do all that, so how do you maintain it? But once you get past that point is when you need to start opening your mind up to what else is out there. When I learned to scuba dive in the late 70s, the instructor was really funny. He said, okay, this is your first lesson. You're going to go underwater. You're going to breathe underwater. And we're going to do that for a few minutes, and then we're going to come up. And he said, but as time goes by and you're going to learn more, he said, and then once you get past the point where you're going, holy cow, I'm breathing underwater. He said, then you're going to start being able to appreciate what's going on around you and what's happening and what's everything.
Yep.
I read a quote the other day, and it said, it was in a woodworking magazine, and all it said was, without wood, it would just be working. And see, that's what we're talking about. I was reading something the other day, and it said, in Roman times, when you made something, it was important that they wanted to have durability, function, and beauty.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. You can read it. It's like written and inscribed on statues and stuff like that. And they honored the craftsmen, and so if you just had a pair of shoes that a German or a Roman cobbler made, they would want to incorporate these things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when you look back at those times and the whole Greco-Roman period, think about this, right? Things are durable. We still look at them, right?
Yeah.
They were highly functional. look at what the Romans invented, aqueducts and everything else, right? And what's something else everything had? Beauty, right? And so we can't like, what is beauty? Okay, well, that's pretty subjective. But if you look at things like Art Deco, and you look at things like Frank Lloyd Wright, right? Art Nouveau, things like that. Well, that sense of aesthetics and sense of styling exists in our community.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look at my Turnbull restored 1885 Hopkins and Allen single shot falling block rifle, it makes my heart soar.
Yeah.
And to shoot it does exactly what you're talking about. Is it takes you on a journey, and when you shoot them, because it's definitive and it's at a pace, and you're allowed to think about what happened as you do it. When I take a shot and I miss, it allows me that moment to think, well, what happened then? Was I paying attention to the sights? Was it something that in my reload that wasn't good? And then you look at things again and you examine the cartridge. I think it's constantly creating these continuous loop videos that you play in your mind the rest of your life. And I'm sorry, but just, it's fun for the first few times, but when you go bang away with some 9mm polymer auto pistol and you waste $100 worth of ammunition, yeah, okay, it's fun, but if somebody said, hey, Roy, you want to go shoot 100 rounds through a polymer auto pistol at the steel plate today? I'd say not really. I would say, would you like to take 10 rounds and try to hit the 300-yard gong? Now, that's a little more interesting,
Yep.
So I think with these too many guns today have a high level of mechanical functionality, but have lost touch with the art side of things.
Yeah.
And I don't see any reason why you can't have both. I mean, in the most simple thing that we make, it can still be artistic. It can still make you think, and I think if you look in my gun safe, you see every gun. Well, you've been in my gun safe with me. And what happens? I pull out a gun and I hand it to you. Invariably, you go, oh, gosh. Or, geez, this is beautiful. Or, right?
Right.
And so that's how I've morphed over the years, is that I've steered myself toward these more interesting things. I think with these single shot rifles, just like a single action Colt, and you like single action guns.
Yeah.
We're on this Ruger Wrangler thing right now. And I think part of the charm of that is that it puts a governor on you, and it makes you stop and slow down and be more social with the people you're shooting with, because you shoot your single action gun, and now for the next 2 or 3 minutes, you're taking empties out and reloading it. Meanwhile, you're visiting with whoever you're there with, right?
Yep.
And you're talking about the ammunition, and you're talking about that holster that you wish you had, and then after a little while, one of you may shoot again.
Yep.
And I've been to black powder cartridge matches, where they shoot centerfire big bore black powder cartridge rifles at out to 1,000 yards even. And I've also been to Camp Perry style matches, and I've been to, weekend, gun club competitions and stuff. And what I've found is that these black powder cartridge rifle shooters, that they are very much connected strongly to one another. It's not like a cult. It's not that at all.
Yeah.
But they're friendly and they're family-like, and they're engaged with each other, and things are important to them, and they share and help each other. I mean, I've seen guys, give someone who was about to beat them, some ammunition so he could finish.
Yep.
And I don't always see that level of connectivity in a lot of modern shooting.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and this is, I'm hesitant to use this word, but maturity. I think that's part of it. And I'll give you an analogy that it directly affects us. First of all, it's no secret that the guns readership, the audience, it tends to be older. tend to be older, more affluent, and very well versed in guns. We're not a novice type of magazine. We certainly welcome you to pick it up, but on average, our readers are older and very knowledgeable. What I hear as a disparaging remark when I'm talking amongst the industry is, well, your readers are all dying off. Well, unfortunately, that's true because we all have a limited lifespan. We're not going to live forever. But what I seem to notice, and I can't prove it statistically, but what I see happening is as our readers age out and go to the great hunting ground in the sky, younger people are reaching a point where, okay, I've got 5 ARs and I got 3 or 4 polymer pistols. I'm really intrigued by these things they call revolvers. And who's this Skeeter Skelton guy? And who's Charlie Askins? And why are they important? And Jeff Cooper, what's he got to do with this? And they go on this journey. They want to know more. They want to expand their knowledge. They want to understand who these people were, how the industry got here, how the guns got designed like they were, how it all developed. And they start developing that appreciation for all this other stuff. And suddenly they find themselves reading Guns Magazine, not because we've got a black gun on the cover, but because we're talking about the 1908 Springfield or whatever. So I really think it's a constant turnover and evolution that as we lose readers, we're gaining readers because, and not all of them. A lot of folks will just stay happy to keep banging away with the ARs, which, I got a bunch of those too, but I think a certain portion of them at some point want to know more. Why is this? How is this? I see the beauty in this, and it just rounds out the experience that much.
I think you're exactly right. And I used to tell that to people is that, yes, we have some seniority on our readership, which really that translates to maturity, appreciation for value, appreciation for the artistic side of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And those people are busy mentoring younger people.
Yes.
I mean, I just spent 2 months with a 15-year-old boy teaching him, working with him while he built a 32 caliber black powder rifle.
Ah.
And it was an absolute pleasure. He was engaging. He was interested. He was learning tool skills, and it was just really fun. And of course, when it was finished, and I posed him outside the shop holding it up, his face was beaming.
Yeah.
He was so proud of just a very simple single shot, 32 caliber muzzle loading rifle. And so that's going on. And I think that's an important part of actually what we're talking about. It's that ability to see beyond the, oh, hey, I'm breathing underwater, which, which if someone,
wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, this is crazy, man. How, and so somebody goes and buys their first gun, and I'm not disparaging new shooters. You and I both know that.
Right.
One of the things I say at the end of almost every video I make is I say, and don't forget to take a new shooter shooting.
Yep.
Because they are our future. But I think when you buy your first gun and you go and you shoot that first shot and you go, holy cow, that's loud.
Yeah.
That jumped in my hand, And so now, as soon as you get past that, is when it starts getting interesting.
Yeah.
Let me throw something at Kimber here now. There was some years ago, Kimber started introducing these guns, and they were kind of custom 1911s, and they had beautiful colors. There was this like rich kind of purple color on one of them, and these sapphire blues. And I was stunned when I was at the SHOT Show when they got introduced that the aisle was clogged at people wanting to see these guns. It was like they were so relieved to see something that wasn't a black polymer pistol. It's like, wow, these are fully functional guns. You could defend yourself with these. You could do whatever you need to do. But guess what? They're also pretty.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about single shot rifles. And now I will also say that I'm not sure, at least in my opinion, that all single shot rifles even really qualify for what we're talking about. Because if I had this utilitarian survival single shot rifle that somebody made one time, and it was just like, it was a wrench, that's all it was. You put a box of cartridges and you stick it in your truck and it was a wrench. But, I have a rifle that I think you shot off my back porch, and it's a 1885 Browning low wall single shot rifle with a tang sight and 32-20.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's an old, heavy, big rifle with a silly sight shooting an archaic cartridge. And we absolutely enjoyed every minute of it.
Absolutely.
And to me, it just goes back to that sense of quality, sense of durability, sense of functionality. But those kind of guns, to be a Colt single action, a quality single shot rifle, a classic, a Turnbull restored Winchester lever action, they promote engagement.
Yep.
They just, you look at them and you go, oh, I talked to Dan Batchelor today. He's Powder River Precision, and he's the guy that made the action group for that 1022 rifle. That's going to be on the cover guns.
Yeah.
And I said, Dan, what drives you? And he said, it's a quest for quality and perfection.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's funny. That's just what we're talking about today.
Yep.
So I don't know. I hope we've made a little bit of sense, I suppose,
Well, it's heavy stuff, but I mean, I really feel like this is like the ultimate goal that shooters or fishermen or hunters or woodworkers should get to. That's the place where you've gotten beyond the mechanics of it. You've tried all the other stuff, and now you just appreciate whether you've got a 1970s Model 19 in your hand, or you've got, an original Model 94 Winchester, whatever it is, you have an appreciation. And I got to say, when I became the editor of Guns, that has been part of my journey, is I've really started to appreciate some of these older, really esoteric guns, because we cover some really, out there kind of things. And it's funny, I've said this before, when I'm editing, and I'm trying to think of one in particular, but it could be about any gun, something that I'm not familiar with, that I haven't shot before. By the time I'm done editing the story, which is going word by word, line by line, and doing the photos, picking the photos, writing the captions, it's like, I got to have one of those. And I got to have one of those. And I got to have one of those. And it's just because I appreciate the backstory, the story of how it got to be, why it was hated or loved or whatever. And again, I think it's a level of whatever word you want to use. I hate to use maturity because that implies you have to be a certain age. And we all know there's old souls that may only be 35, but they're wise beyond their years. So take chronological age out of it and just say, once you reach a certain place in your journey to where you really appreciate all these other factors, the beauty, the design, the social part of it, that is when I feel like you've really matured and arrived and become the best person you can be in your particular sport.
Well, I think if you find yourself starting to get bored, I've got my fill in the blank pistol. I've shot my 5,000 rounds at the range. I'm kind of bored now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're only bored because you don't know enough yet. So, when I first started reading gun magazines when I was 11 or 12 years old, I remember vividly that I read every single article in every gun magazine. Did I care about reloading 16 gauge shotguns? Nope. Had little idea even what it meant, but I forced myself to read it.
That is so funny. I did the same thing.
Do it. Yeah, I still do it. And so what that has done for me over the years, though, is as you're what was it? Somebody said to you, you let your muse out.
Yeah, let your muse run free.
It feeds your muse. In other words, so now when I see a 16 gauge Fox Sterling Worth side by side shotgun, which I have, is my heart soars.
Yeah,
and I go back to all of the things that I remember, and all the things that I learned, and So I think if you're finding yourself at a dead end, or you're finding yourself frustrated, is you need to do basically what you're doing, which is you read an article and you think, well, that's interesting. Well, good. We'll do that. And then go find one.
Yeah.
And then find some old guy that looks like me with gray mustache and get him to talk to you about it. So, But I think one of the most important things, especially young shooters, can do today, and that is to go buy yourself a single shot rifle. And it can be a single shot 22 or whatever thing you want. I've enjoyed lately. I have an 1885 Browning. It's a turnbull gun.
Mm-hmm.
It's in 45-70, but I'm reloading for it. And I'm shooting these about 1,000 feet per second loads, 300 grain cast lead bullet, 1,000 feet per second. Hardly kicks.
Yeah.
Right. So you get this great fun of shooting this big bore rifle at 100 or 200 yards. The steel plates clang like a son of a gun when you hit it. If I spend an hour on the back patio, I don't think I shoot 20 rounds.
Yeah.
That'd be like a pretty busy day for me. But boy, every single time it's satisfying. And I know that it's because it forces you to slow down.
Yeah.
It's because everything's very definitive. You open the cartridge box, you take out the reloaded cartridge. You remember what it was like to reload this bullet that you're holding in your hand, right? You open up the action of the gun within and of itself is pleasing, and you load it, and to watch that big cartridge disappear into the chamber is satisfying. Yep. And when you close that locking bolt close, something fun is about to happen, right? Then you settle down and cock that big hammer back and find the sights. And meanwhile, visions of buffalo hunting are going on in the back of your brain. And you set the trigger. And then as your trigger finger begins to touch the front trigger to shoot the gun, everything is focused. Your mind is at peace. You're not thinking about anything else. And you wait for that. And there's an anticipation because this recoil is going to happen. And it's not something to dread. It's something to want. Yeah. And then it occurs and you hear the clang of the steel and you can see it swing in the distance. And then you open it up and a little wisp of smoke comes out and the cartridge slides out in your hand and you go, that's what it's about.
Exactly. And, you said it, and I can't remember what context, but it was something to the effect of, at that moment, if you're not satisfied, you have no soul.
I think you may be right. Yeah.
I think you did.
Well, I don't think it's inappropriate. I don't think it's unmanly. I don't think it's weakness to look for the beauty in something. Right. And it doesn't matter what that is. If it's your 36 Packard or the new knife you bought, and beauty can be in simple things. The Japanese have a saying, I think it's wabi sabi. I think that's what it is. And that's what there's perfection in imperfection. I mean, in Japanese culture, a crack in a ceramic cup isn't something that you would throw away. As a matter of fact, they would put gold in it to highlight the crack. Yeah. Because they think it's vain to think that you could have perfection, So, but I think that ability to look at something, to look at that bent oak tree in your backyard, to look at that, it doesn't matter, whatever you're looking at, whatever's interesting to you, and to be able to appreciate it and go beyond the moment with it. In other words, when I look at that rifle laying on my bench, I go beyond seeing that rifle. Yes, you look at it, you say, oh, that's a pretty gun. Yes, it is. But now you get to really enjoy it. Why is it pretty? Why do you like it? Why do you have that emotional attachment? So yep. I don't know. I think it's a natural part of shooting. And if you don't allow yourself to enjoy that, you're missing out on a huge thing.
Absolutely agreed. Well, this has been a great episode. This is as close as it gets to us sitting around a campfire with some Kentucky holy water, having these kind of philosophical discussions. And I've really enjoyed this. This has been one of those things that makes life better and richer and more fun. So I appreciate the topic suggestion and taking time to talk.
I appreciate you being willing to do something like this. And I think if you're a listener, what's one more thing? If you're a listener and you think, well, I don't really get this, I waited about 7 or 8 years and I got a Ted Yost Browning high power, which just arrived, which to my mind, it ranks amongst the finest guns you could ever own, at least in my opinion, right? It's subtly just beautiful. Well, there's no doubt in my mind that if I showed this gun to a new shooter, they would look at it and go, oh, what's that? But if I showed it to someone who would have listened to the conversation we've had today, he would add that to his library. He would look at that and he would, assimilate it and add it to his muse and appreciate what it is and think about it and wonder about it and want to learn more about it, and so that's the transition you have to make. So if you're a new shooter, buy a single shot rifle and start.
Our theme within a theme today, but no, you're absolutely right, Roy. And again, on a higher plane in a way, sharing that gun with somebody makes it part of their life too. They may not own it. They may not ever see it again or shoot it, but it's part of their life. And what a great way to have an awful lot of guns, even if they're not in your locker.
What a good observation. Yeah, you're right. That's another reason to read Guns Magazine.
There you go.
Because you're right. It's when I read an article in there and I see this gun, it's like that becomes a part of my life now.
Yep.
So yeah, you're right. All right. Well, this was a lot of fun. We'll have to think about something else we can talk about someday. Exactly.
Well, I hope folks got something out of this. And like you said, if they don't get anything out of this, think about it, Well, Roy, thank you very much. We're starting a new year here on the Guns Magazine podcast, and I'm sure we will have many talks in the future. So thanks again.
You bet. Looking forward to it.
It was great talking to Roy, and I hope you got something worthwhile from our chat. If you've still got some time on your hands and you want to hear more, check out episode 110 on hardware store shotguns with Roy. Or you might like episode number 114 titled Where the Mildew Grows with yours truly. Or finally, check out episode number 154 with Roy Huntington, where we have a fun discussion of cop wire practice. If there's a topic you want to hear, someone you'd like us to interview, or you just want to share your thoughts, please drop me a line at editor@gunsmagazine.com. As always, you can find us on your favorite podcast directory, such as Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, and several others, or visit YouTube and, of course, gunsmagazine.com. You can also subscribe to the Gun Cranks audio podcast on those same directories, or watch it at the Gun Cranks YouTube channel. And please don't forget to visit our great sister publications, American Handgunner Magazine at AmericanHandgunner.com and AmericanCop.com. Finally, don't forget our numerous special editions available for sale on our websites and at Amazon. I'd also like to remind you, visit our sponsor, 4Patriots Survival Food Kits. You can find out more about their great food kits at 4Patriots.com. That's the number 4, the word Patriots, and .com. That's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. For the entire staff at FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. Now get out there and get shooting.